well-known regional artist and distinguished curator, and well, we'll get into a lot of things with Clyde. We'll also be visiting one of the fine collectors in the area, Mr. Earl Corey from Columbiana County, who collects carousel horses, and one of the finest collection of carousel horses anywhere in the land. But this is all coming back. We'll be right back with you in a second with Clyde Singer. In our first segment, we're going to be introducing Mr. Clyde Singer to you. Clyde really doesn't need an introduction, certainly not in this area. Born in the Canton area, he's been in Youngstown for quite a long time as curator of the Butler Institute of American Art, as writer for the Vindicator, but more than anything else, a painter of just the highest caliber. And Clyde Singer, I'm honored to be with you today.
Well, it's my pleasure too, I trust.
Clyde, let's start really at the beginning. How did you get interested in, did art find you, or did you find art? How did it go?
I think I discovered it when I was 5 years old. Yeah. And it was the magazines and newspapers that come into the household, you know, the funny papers especially. I was brought up on funny papers because they were so illustrative and colorful and so on. And that was long ago.
And to think that from 5 and just quite a distinguished career. The most I don't want to forget this. The most recent honor that you received was from the governor of Ohio just a couple of weeks ago, where you were named, given recognition for your contribution to culture in Ohio.
Yeah, that was. These things, they're rare, but they come once in a while and they kind of keep you going, you know.
You left Canton, and you take us from there.
You know, left Canton, let's see. I know I spent most of the years of the 30s I spent in Malvern, the hometown, and it was right after I attended the Art Students League in New York, and I started in painting. And I was lucky right off the reel. I got some big prizes, and the late 30s were good, and Butler found out that he needed somebody to come to Youngstown to help out with the art gallery, and so he pursued me, and I finally, after 2 years of thinking about it, I finally gave in and came to Youngstown in 1940.
But let's back up a little bit, because I know back in the 1930s, first of all, you worked with some pretty famous artists at the Art Students League, didn't you?
Yes. Yeah, John Stewart Curry, Kenneth Hayes Miller, Richard Leahy, any number of them, and George Bridgman, Thomas Hart Benton. I think I wanted to get instruction from as many teachers as possible, so I studied under 8. You could change every month if you wished. And I had, actually the most radical teacher at the time was probably Kuniyoshi. And I never entered his class, but I'd go in and steal time sometimes doing the Nunar and draw from his models and that sort of thing. So it was, all in all, it was pretty rewarding.
Well, and to think that now this I know about you, in the 1930s your career really took off with recognition at the Carnegie International, which must have been a tremendous honor for you.
Yeah, I was lucky, yes. Having gone to the art school in Columbus, you know, in 31, 32, then at the Art Students League in New York in 33 and 34, I come back and painted for a year, and sure enough, a big landscape I did took a silver medal and $500 at the Chicago Art Institute in their big annual, and that was dynamite. I know I went up to the village bank and deposited my check, but I kept, I think, a few dollars out, and I went across the street and bought a 3-2 beer, and something, a sandwich, I think, somehow. That's how I celebrated. You know, in a small town of about 1,000 people, there's not that many people around that would celebrate with you, so I did it alone.
Well, of course, and then over the years, many awards, many art shows.
Yeah, things went well until the whole art scene changed, you know, and it changed with World War II. I was in the Army I was drafted in '41 and come back, I think, about three to 4 years later. And by then things were changing because one thing, a lot of the European artists were coming over, like George Groves and, you know, some pretty good named people. And they were occupying places, teaching and so on, and Hans Hofmann, you know. And they come over doing wartime, and the whole art scene seemed to change. Of course, it was changing not only in the U.S., but internationally. So it was something in the wind.
And of course, it would affect major changes, and which it would impact on all American art, wouldn't it?
Yes. And I know at the time I was invited to come to an experimental station in Florida, you know, where you could come there and they wanted you to do something different, to experiment with the new. And I spent several months there doing abstractions. But they all disappeared.
That wasn't you, though, was it?
Yeah, people wanted them as souvenirs or something. And no, I found out I ran out. You know, I just dried up, and I had to go back to the so-called American scene, the streets and
which is you.
I guess so.
So many of us who know your work and love your work will walk down the street and see a young woman reading a newspaper and thinking that's a Clyde Singer if he were only here to paint it.
Yeah, that's right. Many a person come up to me and I saw one of your models.
Well, we've got on tape an exhibition, just bits and pieces of an exhibition of your work, which is on display at the Butler Institute right now. Why don't we look at that, and maybe you can make a comment or two. And